Trigger warning, this episode includes discussions about suicidal ideation, firearms, and gun ownership. Listener discretion is advised. After having an argument with her boyfriend, my guest Lilli found herself alone in her bedroom with a gun in her hand. On the outside, she appeared to have an amazing life. But on the inside, she was so unhappy and felt so alone. That's when she heard a voice telling her that there was more to life. I'm your host, Dashanka, and you're listening to That Was the Moment God and my higher self conspired and said, there's more. My guest today is Lilli Bewley. Lilli is a dating coach for finding love with over 10 years of experience in personal development. She herself went from just surviving in life to thriving in love and purpose. Currently, she's helping single and successful women love dating and find true love. Lilli is on a mission to educate people on how dating can be fun again after divorce, even in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, and even if they've been single forever. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited for our conversation.
Yeah, it's going to be a great conversation. Thank you.
So why don't we start with what life was like before your moment?
Oh, before my moment, before I jumped on with you today, I was thinking about all the moments that I've had in my life where it was kind of like I was at a crossroads, kind of like hit a complete roadblock, a complete barrier. And there have been a few. But there is one in particular that I'm sure we'll talk about today or tonight, wherever you are. I'm in Phoenix. I know you're in Australia. So before this moment that we are talking about tonight, I went through my life, I feel like a little bit on autopilot. I chose a lot of things, chose a lot of people, chose a lot of paths, for lack of a better term, asleep. Subconsciously, the path that I took for career, for example, was a path that I kind of chose, but also I feel like was the path that I was supposed to walk down. So before this moment, in hindsight is 2020, right? So before this moment, I feel like I was other people's Lilli and I wasn't my Lilli. The way that I presented myself, the way that I felt about my body, my health, my eating, the way that I worked so hard to have everything in my life that people told me that I should have to be happy, right? And in the end, I feel like we all want to be happy. And, I had the car, I had the banging resume, I had the 6-figure job, I had the house, I had even the boyfriend that was really unhealthy. But people didn't know that, anytime other people would ask me how I was doing, oh, I'm doing fine. And I think, like I said, before that moment, I was just on autopilot, but I was really good at being on autopilot. I was really good at achieving. I was really good at getting accolades, getting straight A's, getting, again, like the job that I coveted, beating, quote unquote, beating out 3,000 people for this one job at this very reputable company. And I got really, really good at that. And before the moment, like I said, it was just this, for me, it was like a completely different world. Like, I don't think I could ever go back to that moment in time. But like I said, I had done everything that I was supposed to do. And I hit this point in my life where it didn't make sense because I wasn't happy. The equation that my parents told me that was going to make me happy, it didn't work. The equation that society told me that was supposed to make me happy, it didn't work. The equation that school was supposed to put me down this trajectory in this path towards total bliss didn't work. So that's where I kind of hit my wall.
I resonate so much with everything that you've just said. And I think it's also like the longer you wear that mask of who everyone expects or thinks Lilli should be, the more you become it. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, the mask breaks and you're like, oh, hang on, that's not me. And, or it's like that moment you're like, how did I get from being that person that I used to be to this? Did you feel
Mm-hmm.
like that as well?
Yeah, 100%. In fact, I feel like now, I've gone through this healing journey. And a lot of I talk about my specialty and my zone of genius is dating and love, right? And so, of course, like I went through a bunch of failed relationships to get to where I was. I think what's so interesting about that is I was wearing a mask, but I so 100% thought that that was my personality. Like when I say that I got really, really good at doing all of these things in order to feel validated, in order to belong, in order to feel love, in some kind of way. I grew up in a pretty dysfunctional household, but it became what's so wild about this is it instead of just a mask, it was my personality. Like people would say, "Oh, Lilli, you're so outgoing." And I can be, but in reality, I really prefer silence and stillness and connection with myself and one-on-one. I'm much better one-on-one than I am in groups, right? But I got really, really good at honing that outgoing personality. But in reality, because of the trauma, because of the things that have happened to me in the past, it was really just my way of fitting in. Like, and it was a mask,
Mm-hmm.
but it's so ingrained. It gets so ingrained in us until we like, whatever word you want to call it, have our awakening, have our moment or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And to really, really find out who we are is such like a beautiful process. But I don't know if I really ever would have gotten there if I hadn't have had this total like hit a wall aha moment of this shit is not
Yeah.
working, basically.
Tell us about your moment.
Mm. Well, like I said, I had achieved pretty much anything that I set out to do, I achieved. Like literally that was like once again part of like the way that people saw me is like Lilli goes out and she does it. And she's successful. She does everything. So again, I had everything lined up the way I was supposed to have it, early 30s. And I remember this so vividly because it hit me literally like a ton of bricks, but it was my birthday and I was in a very toxic relationship, on again, off again, unhealthy relationship. We got into this argument, whatever, really small argument on my birthday. And like birthdays have always had this kind of very, I don't know, negative connotation for me because it was just like my one day. Like, just give me one day where I can like have people love me the way that I'm supposed to be loved. Give me the one day where I'm treated like the queen and the princess that I know that I'm supposed to be. But it never worked out like that, right? Never, ever. So we got in this big fight, and I remember that I just felt so unseen, unheard, misunderstood, and we, like I said, got in that fight in the kitchen. I went into the bedroom and I was just crying. I was bawling. I was really upset. And a thought came to me, and trigger warning for anyone's listening. But a thought came to me that had never come to me before. It never crossed my mind. That there was a gun in the bedside table. And I hadn't thought about this before. There was no premeditation or anything like that. But what I hit was this paradigm shift of everything that has been given to me and been told to me is completely BS and untrue. So what do I do now? There's nothing left for me to do. There's nothing left for me to achieve. There's no money left for me to chase because I already have the money. There's no love for me to chase because I'm supposed to have everything that I'm supposed to have, but I just didn't have it. And so there's a part of me that really wanted to give up. And I had never thought about this before, ever in my life. But a voice said, there's a gun in the drawer next to you. So I pulled, I'm in the room by myself, sitting on the bed, pulled out the drawer, pulled out the gun. And I remember the how heavy it was in my hand. It was heavy and it was cold. But it felt like the answer, right? Because there's nothing else. I couldn't do anything else. I've done everything. Like I've spun my wheels, I've done everything. And I held it in my hand. And then I think that like one of the first times I ever remember like before that point of God and my higher self kind of combining and joining forces and tapped me on the shoulder and said, this isn't it. This is not it. And so I listened, again, never really having heard that voice before, but I listened. I put the gun back in the drawer. And that was the moment that I accepted that what I had been taught and everything that I was striving for was not me, but I didn't really know what was next, which takes lots of courage, right? Like if you don't know what to do. And that was like my first big awakening. And that was when I really started to look into the different patterns I was having. I started to look into healing. I started to look, and that was like over 10 years ago at this point. I started to look into why the way I was the way I was. I started to look at my parents and then seeing my patterns that were very similar to their patterns and figuring out how to heal and hiring practitioners. And so it really was just the moment really that changed my life completely.
Wow. Wow. That's really heavy stuff. And where did that voice come from, you know? And because obviously your higher self, God, or, you know, whatever you want to call it, was saying to you, no, this isn't it. But do you think it was also your higher self going, well, you can make it a reality. Here's the gun, but you know it's not it. Well, how do you think of both those voices? Was it the same voice?
Great question. You know, I don't know, to be honest. I can tell you that, like, even me today saying the word God and not being triggered is huge. People used to ask me, like, what I believed in. And I would say, I believe in me. I was so hyper independent that I was my own God in a way, right? Which is good in some ways because we can take care of ourselves. But when it's just us and we don't have any support, we don't have any like something bigger than us, then what are we living for? You know, like purpose or whatever. But you know, that's a great question. I think it was one of the first times I had ever actually listened to like been available, like so empty to be able to listen to different voices. Because in the past I was, you know, before that time, all of my energy was spent in achieving, in seeking love, in seeking validation, in seeking affirmations, in seeking acquisition, right? And so there was no room for me to listen to God or even, you know, myself. And so I guess I just had to get to that, you know, people call it dark night of the soul. I kind of think of it now like as an emptiness. I was just empty because in realizing that's all of that shit had no weight, no weight. And I always like to say too that like all of these things that I was striving for was for me to experience love. And my love tank had holes in the bottom of it. So anytime that I would achieve, and like now I talk about dating and relationship, right? Same thing. So like I haven't put this post down in a long time, but I slept with 2 men in one day. Why do you think that was? It was because I needed the constant validation, the constant love, but my love tank had holes in it. And so, of course, I just kept on going and kept achieving and kept, you know, getting the man and all this stuff.
I have a theory that overachievers are super avoiders. So
Absolutely.
you keep on achieving because you want to, and I speak from experience here.
Oh, I know.
If you keep trying to reach the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, you can avoid that emptiness that you feel, right? And you put it really well with the love bucket having holes in it, because no matter how much love you're putting it in there, it's never going to stay because it's always going to be empty. It's always going to be empty. And I think your story about your moment, the word awakening, I was just thinking to myself, like, you had to have that moment to see the world with new eyes. Like, so it was like, and you know, you've woken up for the first time. So I think that word awakening just really kind of fits that, you know. And it had to be something drastic as well, because, you know, if it was something little, you'd be like, brush it off and, you know, go and do something else. But so it had to, and perhaps your higher self has been trying to get in touch with you before, trying to say things, but you were just never in a position to listen. I know that, again, I'm speaking from experience.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because if you're so busy doing things, then you don't have time to sit with yourself and be with yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So after that moment, what did you do next? Because
Mm.
that feels so important, but also like life is still happening as normal.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. What happens
Well,
next?
yeah. The next day I told my boyfriend at the time, and he pretty much solidified why I was never going to talk to him for the rest of my life, because I told him I told him, you know, like what had happened. I told him like this was scary. Like I had never now like I know like with suicide, you know, I've had experiences not through me, but like people that are close to me where people will think about suicide beforehand and, you know, they'll come up with a plan. And that wasn't the case for me. It was just like, here it is. It was just a part of me that just came up and like, well, here's an answer. You don't want to feel this anymore. Here's an answer for you.
Mm.
And I told him about, because it scared me, about what it was. And you know what he said to me? He said,
I don't, I'm like closing my eyes. Oh,
he said, well, you wouldn't even know how to work the gun, is what he told me.
oh,
So that pretty
yeah.
much solidified that this is all messed up. This world that I've been living in is completely bunk, and I need to figure out a way to heal. Although I didn't have that word then.
Mm-hmm.
But what I did do is I just started to educate myself. And you know, if you've been in healing for a while, one of the first steps almost always is about awareness. Is like, I know awareness is always the first step, right? Like, oh, like I'm not alone here. Like this is a thing. Like codependency was the thing that I dove into. And then I started to go to CODA. I don't know if you're familiar with CODA, but CODA is Codependence Anonymous. You know, so if anybody's listening, and you're stuck, there are a ton of like, it's a free resource. There are a ton of free resources. I am obviously a coach now. I offer my expertise about dating and relationships, you know, from an investment perspective. But like, there is never an excuse to be stuck, y'all. And I say that with the most amount of love because I want people to really be who they are. But I just started learning. I started to be aware. I started to notice patterns, and I started to, you know, and then I got into therapy for the first time. I don't think anybody in my family had ever talked about therapy. So I got into therapy. I got into just a bunch of different healing modalities, and it kind of opened up, you know, from there. But what I knew, it's like when you have a moment like that, which I'm sure everyone that's listening has had, right? This is what we're here to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
There's like, you can't unknow what you know. Like, you can't unsee what you see.
Absolutely.
So there is an immense amount of internal courage and external bravery to do something different than what you had been doing before, to change your thoughts, to change your beliefs, to change your behaviors, to change your actions, and ultimately to heal the root cause for why whatever is happening that you don't like in your life, you know, is the way it is. And to not rely on coping mechanisms like hyperindependence or overperformance or whatever, right? And so it's just, I think that was one of the first acts of self-love that I ever gave myself that I can remember in my life, is just being open to the fact that there's something different out there. I just don't know it yet.
I think for me, one of the things was realizing that for a long time I felt like I had no choice, but I realized that by me thinking I had no choice was my choice. you
Mm-hmm.
know? So,
100%.
and I think once I had, that was my awareness. And, you know, as you said, once you know, you can't unknow. And
Mm-mm.
I think you can try and distract yourself with like things, you know, partying, drugs, alcohol, whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
you know that knowing is with you, and it will keep hounding at you. It's just there. It's like, come on, now, now.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's also waiting for the right time, because you have to be in a space, in a mindset where you are actually ready to do something about it. Because there's no point going, I'm going to leave this relationship, but actually be saying it rather than being ready to take action.
Mm. Yeah. Well, that's a lot about, like, for me, it's a lot about healing. Is that a lot of times, especially when you're like a little more advanced in your healing journey, um, a lot of times what we have problems with the most is knowing that we love ourselves in our head, but then our actions and behaviors don't line up with self-loving actions, and you're laughing.
Yes, because yes, yeah.
Yes.
It's still something I struggle with today. I know that it's not doing me good, but I still continue to do it. And
Mm.
yeah, and then, you know, then you go through that little, oh God, I feel so guilty. I feel blah, blah, blah. And then you do better, and then you do that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's, and I think it's like it's a constant process, isn't it? And you know, I always say to people that, you know, there's no such thing as healed. Healed, the word
Mm-mm.
healed is not, does not exist. Like there's no such
Mm-hmm.
thing. Um, it needs constant work,
Mm-hmm.
because those triggers and those actions and behaviors as well. Like remember how long you've had them for, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
so in my case, it was, I think it was like 35 years when I started going through my stuff, and I was like trying to change, but I was finding it really hard, because that's 35 years of thinking in a certain way. You can't
Mm-hmm.
undo it
Mm-hmm.
in a week,
Yeah.
in even a year. You know, I think
Mm-hmm.
it just keeps coming back.
Mm-hmm.
So what other stuff did you do to heal? What did you find the most beneficial for you?
Um, well, for me, like I said, it started with like books and reading and podcasts and stuff like that. And I feel like that's where a lot of people get stuck. Because I
Mm-hmm.
almost got stuck there, because there's no amount, just what you were saying, is there's no amount of knowledge that you can accumulate that is going to help you with the internal stuff that's happening, the root cause reasons for why what's happening in your life and your patterns that you're seeing are the way they are. Um, and I elected, like I said, I elected with courage for things that I really didn't know like what to expect. I let go of control, because it was either, for me, it was either like keep controlling all of the shit that's happening on in your life, or step into the chaos that you already know about chaos, Lily. Like, you lived in chaos, you bred chaos, but it's just a different type of chaos when you step into therapy or you step into coaching, because it's a lack of control. But it ended up being the best thing that I've ever done in my life. Like, there are some very specific moments when I was really, really scared to make big investments in myself, but it ended up being life changing. And, obviously I'm a coach, not a therapist. And I know, like, people have different reasons for doing different things. But for me, it was really about, it's either do this or go back, do this, like, and it ended up being really continuous acts of self love for me to either invest in myself, invest my time, invest my energy, and make them a priority, y'all. Like,
Yeah.
make yourself, your time and your energy and your healing the most important thing, because all of, at least in my experience, all of that other stuff will follow. Right? But like putting ourselves in situations where we may not really know, or we may not be able to control the outcome, of course, and assuming it's safe, obviously, like it feels safe and you're not going into an unsafe situation. But yeah, I think like I said, it was the therapy and the coaching, I think, that really changed, like, and up leveled me to where I am now. And I'm the same as you. Um, I continue, like, it's a paradigm for me these days. Like, it's what I live by. It's what my partner lives by. And that's one of the reasons why we were so amazing together, is that we separately continue to grow, continue to heal, continue to up level. And we do this from a relationship perspective as well. And it is the most fulfilling, the most enhanced my life has ever been. And I didn't even, again, like, it's very hard when you don't know what's possible because you haven't seen it and you haven't experienced it and you haven't been modeled it. So, like, the relationship that I have, we have broken the patterns of our family, but it's only because that I continue to choose myself and healing and growth as acts of self-love.
I think also you've got to realize that it's a pattern in order to break it. And we'll go back to what you were saying about awareness, if that's where the awareness comes in. Because if you don't know it's a pattern, how do you know that you need to break it? So, that self-awareness is so important. And, as you were saying about the coaching, for me, I read so many self-help books. Like, I can't tell you how many I read. And but just nothing actually just flipped me over. And it was life coaching that actually made it happen, because I was putting that knowledge into practice, because knowledge is nothing if you aren't going to be using it. And so tell me a bit about what life is like for you now. I know you've just talked about you're in an amazing relationship. You've got a very successful coaching business.
I live for me now. That's the number. I mean, that's it. I live for me. Nothing else to say.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
But
I love
no,
that.
I mean, it's true, because if we're looking at post moment, a pre moment and post moment, I was living for everyone but me. I think what people don't tell you the most about having being happy and having this, like, it's not like it's not picture perfect, things happen. It's not like a complete dream where bad stuff doesn't happen. But I think when you're living for you, the bad stuff does not have the effect that it used to have. Like the high highs and the low lows, because if you're on track with being who you are, having boundaries around your time, your energy, having an amazing relationship with money. This is hard for women. Having I focus on dating and relationships in my practice. Having a relationship where you don't have to hold all of the weight in the relationship anymore, but you have someone that can meet you where you are and you can meet them where you are, is a completely fulfilling and enhancing. Like, I always think about it like I'm a bright ass, like I'm a light. I'm a bright light. And anything in my life, if it does not turn up the dial like you would on an old school radio, whatever it is, whether that be job, whether that be purpose, whether that be money, whether that be friendships, whether that be romantic relationships, if that thing does not turn up the dial on your already bright light, and you continue to accept it, self-abandon for it, self-sacrifice for it, then that is your work. Your work is in why that you are accepting things, people, time, energy that is not helping you live the best life that you can live.
Great advice for, anyone out there that's, maybe feeling stuck like you were, and, feeling a bit helpless, would you say?
Or hopeless.
Hopeless, yeah.
Hopeless was big, like lacking hope was big for me. For sure.
Yeah. If you could be remembered by one word, what would that word be?
Love.
And why did you choose that word?
Because I am love. And I think everyone is love. I think that when you do enough healing to be who you are, which for me is just a beacon of love, like that's my gift. Literally my gift is loving someone so deeply that it makes them burst into tears, because then they realize that they can be loved because they've never felt unlovable.
That is so lovely. I love that. I love that. That is so, so beautiful. And is there anything else you would like to share with anyone listening out there that may be going through something similar? Any advice? I'm also going to be adding your contact details to the show notes so people can get in touch and look at your resources. You've got that the feminine dating archetype quiz. So I'm going to go into it too.
I was going to say, do you need to take that, friend?
I'm going to.
Okay, well, I can't wait. Let me know. I want to hear. Yeah, I think whatever I would leave with, like, no matter where you are, if you do feel stuck, just realize and just be open to there being a different way, a better way that you don't know yet, right? Like, if you knew, you would have already done it. It would have already happened. So just like, if you are feeling stuck, just be open to there being a better way. And your patterns are not you. They're not you. You are not hopeless. You are not unlovable. You are not, destined to be alone. Your patterns aren't you. They're just a part of you that is screaming for you to heal in some shape, way, or form. Like I said, there are free resources. There are things like coaching where you can make investments in faster, more effective results. But there's options everywhere. And then, yes, if you are a woman and you are dating, or if you're currently in relationship and you're seeing some patterns that you're maybe not liking inside of yourself, feel free to go to the Feminine Dating Archetype Quiz, which is at datingarchetype.com. It's a 2-minute quiz that will reveal your archetype, your blocks to love, and will help you find your true love match.
Amazing. I'm happy to say that I have broken my patterns in my relationship patterns.
Wonderful.
I'm very, very pleased to say that. But I'm still going to take the quiz.
Yeah, let me know. Email me or DM.
Thank you so much for giving me your time today. It's been so lovely talking to you about all of this. And I love hearing how much you're helping other people. I loved in your bio when you said for people that have been single for forever, because I've got a few friends now going into their 40s or over 40, just feel so hopeless, just feel so like, well, I'm old now. I love that you were helping people who feel that way.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Everyone deserves love. They just have to believe it inside themselves, and every part of themselves has to believe it. And feel free to send them to the archetype quiz. I'd be interested to see kind of where they land as well. Yay!
Thank you so much for your time, and I'll chat to you soon.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you.
Thanks so much for listening. I hope today's conversation inspires and empowers you to know that no matter your current situation, your life can change too. All it takes is a moment. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share it with a friend. If you would like to share your own moment, see the link in the show notes. Until next time, be present in each moment, because you never know when your moment will arrive, or when you have the gift of being a moment for someone else. Take care.